I had offered to donate a kidney because I'm watching her deteriorate on dialysis. You can't even imagine what a terrible thing this is. The dialysis machine pulls the blood out of your system over and over again, 3 hours a day, 3 days a week at least, and it's damaging the vascular system. She had terrible reactions to it. She ended up with water in her lungs half the time because they left too much water on. We have to go to the emergency room, they take off too much water. And the lifespan on dialysis is 2 to 5 years. So she was dying. And so I was desperate to give her a kidney. And they tested us and they said that, oh no, as a matter of fact, because of all of the transfusions that she'd had during surgery, she would reject my kidney. And she would reject, they said, at least 87% of the population who offered her a kidney. So if she was on the kidney transplant list and she could last as long as she would have to get to the top of it, and Soraya is O positive, and just any O blood type, in our area in California, it's a 7 to 10 year wait for a kidney. The lifespan, as long as you can survive on dialysis, on average is 2 to 5 years. So that's why I was desperate to give her the kidney. They tested us, they said, no, we can't possibly do the transplant. Soraya has antibodies against you. So then, this nurse, one night, watching Soraya, they get to know you very well in the dialysis centers, watching her deteriorate, and he came up to her one night. Do you want to tell that story?
And he just said that he knew of a procedure called plasmapheresis that he'd seen work when he worked elsewhere. He said that I should look into it. He thought it could help me. So I went online and I found Cedars-Sinai and found that they did plasmapheresis. When I called them to get the paperwork, they said that I described my situation, and they said, well, you know, we have IVIG, which is intravenous immunoglobulin, which we think might actually work better for you.
That was actually pioneered by Dr. Stanley Jordan at Cedars. As he tells it, in 1987, he woke up in the middle of the night one night, and he was thinking, he knew that this intravenous immunoglobulin, it's immunoglobulin, it's a blood product that has that of all things is full of human antibodies. And they know that when people have autoimmune diseases where their own immune system's attacking itself, if they treat you intravenously, they put a line in your arm, takes a few hours to go in, with immunoglobulin, you stop attacking your own body. So he thought, well, you know, why not take a shot and see if it would stop people from attacking the other person's kidney that's transplanted into them. He thought, for some reason, he thought this might work. So they started doing lab tests, and they would put a person's blood in the test tube, and then they would put some immunoglobulin, and then the potential donor's blood, and the antibodies actually dropped. So then in 1990, he had an urgent case. At that time he was a pediatric nephrologist, which means he had children who had kidney problems. He had a little boy who was dying because he had been on dialysis so long they couldn't get access anymore. In other words, they couldn't access his vascular system. The whole system was shutting down. And he just had a very short time. His dad offered a kidney. And so it had never been done at Cedars or anywhere. So he went to the administration at Cedars,
right,
and the ones who had to give the okay, and he said, can I, on an experimental basis, try this? Otherwise, the boy's going to die. And so they had confidence in him, and they said, go ahead. So they did it, and they mixed the blood, and yes, the antibodies from the boy went way down, low enough to do the transplant. They did the transplant, and the boy survived, and the kidney transplant worked. So then, it's a big process with FDA,
right?
And first, to get something in this country, to get a new therapy approval, they first had to have National Institute of Health trials, and that was done at a few centers around the country, and they were able to show that it was beneficial in helping a lot of people be able to get a transplant. And so then they got FDA approval. And then at that point, Dr. Jordan, which is something that very few people have done, very few heads of transplant centers have done, went to Medicare and said to them, I have a new therapy that will allow people who have been considered untransplantable to get a transplant. And if they get a transplant, they get off dialysis. Now, in this country, I don't think a lot of people know, Congress passed a law, I think it was the late 60s, so that anybody who was in end-stage renal failure, in other words, your kidneys aren't working at all, you will soon die. The toxins build up and you're usually dead within just a matter of weeks, days or weeks. Medicare agreed to pay for the full cost of dialysis for anybody who needed it. And that's turned out to be, I mean, it's saved many people's lives, kept them alive, and cost billions and billions of dollars, of course. So Dr. Jordan said, if we have this situation where I can transplant people who have had to sit on the dialysis list because their donors are not matched, you know, or they have antibodies, or if their donors are a different blood type, and I can get them off of dialysis and get them a transplant, not only will they stop suffering, will they be healthy again, but it will save the government billions of dollars. In fact, Johns Hopkins did a study that showed that if only 15% of the people who need this therapy had it and were able to get a transplant, it would save Medicare $1.3 billion in the first 3 years. So Medicare said, great, we'd be glad to approve it, and they have approved the protocol at Cedars, and they'll pay for the therapy at Cedars.
To start things going, and if you have a high antibody count or you have an ABO incompatible donor, the phone number for Cedars is 310-423-2641, and that will send you directly to the liver and kidney transplant main phone line, and you just need to tell them that you are interested in a kidney transplant, you need a kidney transplant, and you have a high antibody count, or
you have a living donor.
Right. Or you're ABO incompatible with your living donor.
Another thing is, and apparently it's unique at Cedars, are very unusual. If you have managed to stay alive and you're at the top of the cadaver list, and you will be, they've notified you that you're at the top of the list, and you will be getting offers of a kidney, of cadaver kidneys. Cedars has been successful in treating those people so that when the kidney does come up, you're able to accept it, and those have been successful also.